I pride myself on not really hating anything. Hate is probably too strong of a word, but working as a paramedic, there are a whole lot of things that, let's say, frustrate me. Every job has its drawbacks, but when you work in a life or death environment, those drawbacks can really wear on you. So today we're gonna talk about the top 10 things that I hate about being a paramedic. And stick around until number 10 because it's actually the reason why I'm in school to pursue a different job. What's up everybody? For those that are new here, my name is Matt, I'm a paramedic, and it is my mission to help provide you with the skills and tools to potentially save a life one day. And if you want to become a part of the movement, head on over to paramedicapproved.com to get your hands on the best first aid kit on the market, the Paramedic Approved First Aid Kit. All right, so because today's video is gonna be on the negative side, make sure that once you're done with this video to go check out my last video where I discussed the top 10 reasons why I love being a paramedic. That way you can see the full picture of what life as a paramedic is like. And again, remember that while the following top 10 lists may paint a bleak picture of paramedicine, I still love my job and I am honored to serve my community. All right, number 1 on the list is pay. I'm sure this comes at no surprise because it's probably common knowledge that EMTs and paramedics do not make a ton of money. I'm sure everyone would make an argument that they should be paid more for their job, but when you really add it all up and all the responsibilities that are asked of us, I don't believe that it's fair pay. And because of this, many paramedics have to move on to a different profession because it would be too hard to provide for a family. Fingers crossed we can all get a pay increase, but I'm not holding my breath. All right, this is another one that probably doesn't come as a surprise, but number 2 is stress. It feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders when you're the only paramedic on scene, especially in your first and second year on the job. Many calls are routine and not a life or death situation, but when those crazy calls do come, no amount of training can prepare you for the stress that comes along with them. This is why there is such a high burnout rate in EMS. It's just really hard for a lot of people to handle the stress of these traumatic calls and get right back out there to respond to another one. Because of this, it is so important that every EMT and paramedic have some sort of stress relief in their life, whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time with friends and family, journaling, or even seeing a therapist. Mental health should not be pushed off to the side, and it's important for all first responders to support each other because only we can relate to one another. Okay, number 3 is hearing damage. An unfortunate consequence of riding in an ambulance with blaring sirens is your hearing will end up suffering because of it. A couple of years ago, I started to notice that my hearing wasn't what it used to be, so now I try to put in earbuds before I go code 3 to a call so I can at least save what hearing I have left. And the 4th reason I hate being a paramedic is exposure to pathogens. I remember the first couple years I worked as a paramedic, I was getting sick more and more frequently than I was used to. And considering that I was confining myself in an ambulance with sick people day after day, this wasn't a shocker. The silver lining is that I've been exposed to so much over the years that my immune system is rock solid at this point. Number 5 is lack of upward job mobility. This means that when you become a paramedic on an ambulance, there's not really anything you can be promoted to. I mean, you can become a supervisor, but that's more of a transfer to an administrative role. There's also the option of transitioning to a flight medic or getting into teaching, but I really wouldn't call those promotions. So if you're looking to climb the corporate ladder over the next few decades, EMS is not the gig for you. Okay, so the next 2 I actually brought up in my 10 things I love about being a paramedic video, but they do have a dark side as well. So number 6 is having to work outside. When the weather is great, I love having a job that gets me outside, but when it's over 100 degrees in the summer or the smoke-ridden sky is an apocalyptic orange out here in California, that's when working outside becomes a burden. And I know that relatively speaking, us California kids actually have it pretty easy. So shout out to all you first responders out there that have to tough it through the humidity, snow, and sub-zero temperatures that we don't have to deal with out here. All right, another thing that falls on both the love and the hate list is the hours. I know I said that I like 12-hour shifts because it means that we have more days off, but 12 hours is a long time. I've gotten used to it at this point, but when you have a 12-hour workday, it really doesn't leave that much time for anything else. When you add in the morning routine and commute both ways, there's really not much time to do anything else with your day besides eat and sleep, because you have to get up and do it all over again the next day. Number 8 is the smells. Being a paramedic is basically a full-on assault on the senses. We see things that we wish we could unsee, we blow out our eardrums with years of blaring sirens, and the worst assault on our senses are the smells. I'm not gonna dwell on this one in case some of you have a weak stomach, but let's just say that the human body can produce some unflattering smells that we have to be exposed to as first responders. Fortunately, like with most things, it gets easier and easier over time. So while a new paramedic might be at risk of losing their lunch on a GI bleed call, I'm looking forward to my lunch after that same call. All right, number 9. Now, we've been keeping things pretty light so far, but this next one is pretty heavy, and in my opinion, it's the hardest thing about being a paramedic. Number 9 is having to forgive yourself after making mistakes. I don't care how much you prepare, train, or study, as a paramedic, you will make mistakes. Actually, you will make many, many mistakes, not because it's the nature of the job, but because it's human nature to make mistakes. The problem is that there is a lot on the line in EMS, so the potential for your mistake to go horribly wrong is much higher than the average job. I'm not afraid to admit that I have personally made a lot of mistakes as a paramedic, and because I care so much about my patients, it tears me up inside, especially when I replay the mistake over and over after the call. But I was fortunate enough to come across a book that taught me about self-compassion and self-kindness, so that now when I make a mistake, I can move through the self-forgiveness process much quicker and with much less suffering. If you're curious about that book, it's called Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff. Highly recommended, even if you're not a first responder. Okay, number 10, the last thing that I hate about being a paramedic is that the role you play as a paramedic is a reactive role rather than a proactive role. So what do I mean by this? As a paramedic, we basically sit around until something bad happens. We know something is gonna happen, but we don't know the who, what, where, and when. And don't get me wrong, I love being the person to come to the rescue when these things happen. But you know what's better than coming to the rescue when something bad happens? Never having to come to the rescue at all. That's right, from the patient's perspective, they always wish that they never had to call 911 in the first place. Whether they're having a heart attack or a stroke, shortness of breath, a diabetic emergency, hypertensive crisis, whatever it may be that they are suffering from, they would much rather not go through that suffering than having someone come to their rescue. And that has been one of my biggest frustrations as a paramedic, understanding that if everyone just adopted healthier lifestyle habits, we could avoid a lot of the suffering that I have to witness on a daily basis. That is why a few years ago, I decided to pursue my passion for nutrition to become a dietitian. I know this probably seems out of left field for this kind of video, but the most empowering thing that I have learned from my time in EMS is that we all have the power to control our own health destiny. Some fluke health problems we can't control, but the vast majority of death and disability comes from our lifestyle habits, especially what we eat on a daily basis. And it was that realization that led me to pursue a more proactive role in helping people so that my patients can avoid the back of the ambulance altogether. All right, there you have it. 10 reasons why I hate being a paramedic. I do want to stress that I still love my job, and I hope this didn't turn away anyone considering a job as a paramedic. And if it did, be sure to check out my last video explaining the top 10 reasons why I love being a paramedic. And as always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button over here so you don't miss any more life-saving advice in the future. And go ahead and check out one of these hand-picked videos on your screen. Take care.